And now, the business of boxing. Pacquiao, Mayweather, Mosley, some of the big names and some big numbers potentially for HBO. Michele Steele has more with Mark Taffett. He's HBO's pay-per-view inside man. Michele?
Yeah, the guy to talk to about pay-per-view. You know, the business of boxing is largely the business of pay-per-view, and Mark Taffett is here from HBO Pay-Per-View. So we've got Pacquiao-Claudy coming up in less than 2 weeks. We've got, obviously, Mosley Mayweather. You're here to promote that in May. How many pay-per-view buys are you expecting for those fights?
Well, you know, the last couple of years, every time Manny Pacquiao or Floyd Mayweather get in the ring, they've been generating 1 million buys or more. And that's really the definition of mega fight in our business. So those are the kinds of expectations we have. These days, people want to get together, and 1 million buys is within the reason for everything.
Over 1 million. And this year, certainly for sports ratings, they've been up really across the board, across several leagues. Now, the big one a lot of people were expecting this year, obviously the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight, that isn't happening anymore. Was HBO involved at all in the failed negotiations?
Well, it isn't happening right now. But you never say never in boxing. Negotiations take twists and turns, they meander, and the big fights, if you look in history, they always come back and they always get done. But these two fighters, Mayweather and Pacquiao, they've got some pretty big challenges ahead of them. You know, Pacquiao's got to get by Josh Claudy, tough fighter, and Mayweather, Shane Mosley, doesn't get any tougher than that. But if they're successful, and that's a big if, then I suspect that the public demand will be there again and the negotiations will be back on.
Right, a lot of money on the table with Pacquiao and Mayweather, for sure. So why shell out, you know, for the consumer at home, why shell out $50 for either of these fights?
Well, first of all, these are the top athletes in the sport today. They're in superior conditioning. They are very competitive. They give 150% every time they're in the ring. But most importantly, particularly in tough economic times, people love to get together. It's a night of camaraderie. It's a night with family and friends. Typically 5 to 8 people per household get together. And as a result, that $50 price tag costs the same as it costs as a movie ticket, about $10 a head. So it works out very well.
Let's talk about the profit potential for HBO as well. Does HBO pay-per-view make money off of these fights? You know, 90% of this revenue, a lot of the revenue goes obviously to the fighters and the promoters. How much do you guys see?
Very modest. You'd be surprised how modest HBO pay-per-view's participation is. We're really in the business of seeing these fights take place, doing live fights on HBO, and facilitating the big ones getting done for the good of the sport.
Okay, and very quickly here, what's the challenge from MMA that you see from UFC? How is boxing going to fight that off?
No challenge whatsoever. Interestingly, only 3% to 5% of the fans buy both boxing and MMA. There's very little overlap, completely independent demographics. We exist together. Very interesting. I look at the expression on your face. Most people don't understand that. We did fights the same night. We do fights every month together. And both businesses are doing extremely well, tremendous fan bases, and we both move on successfully. No problem.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for coming in.